Most of the yogurt sitting in your refrigerator right now isn't actually yogurt. It's a thickened, sweetened, gum-stabilized dairy product engineered in a lab to look like yogurt, feel like yogurt, and trick your tongue into believing it's the real thing. You're standing in the dairy aisle thinking you're making a wellness choice, but the reality is that the American yogurt aisle is a $6 billion marketing illusion. Most shoppers are paying premium prices for what is essentially flavored pudding with a probiotic logo slapped on the lid to make you feel better about your life choices. Real yogurt has exactly two ingredients: milk and live bacterial cultures. That's the entire list. It's been that way for thousands of years. But if you walk down that fluorescent lit aisle today and start flipping over containers, you're going to find a chemistry set: modified cornstarch, gelatin, carrageenan, sucralose, milk protein concentrate, and natural flavors that contain nothing natural at all. I spent 3 weeks auditing every major brand on the shelf to find the truth, and the results were more insulting than I expected. Today, I'm exposing 6 massive brands that are effectively stealing your money with industrial shortcuts, and revealing the 3 brands that still make yogurt the way it was made a century ago. Stay until the end, because the cheapest brand on this list happens to be the most authentic, and that's a math problem the big corporations really don't want you to solve. Before we start naming names and burning bridges, we need to talk about why your yogurt looks like a science experiment. It all comes down to the Greek craze. Authentic Greek yogurt is supposed to be thick, tart, and packed with protein. The reason it's thick is simple: straining. You take regular yogurt and you strain it through cheesecloth 3 separate times to remove the liquid whey. This process takes hours, and it is, from a corporate perspective, a total nightmare. It requires nearly 4 gallons of milk to produce just 1 gallon of finished strained yogurt. Think about that math for a second. To make a single 8-ounce cup of real strained yogurt, a manufacturer needs approximately 32 ounces of raw milk. Milk is expensive, labor is expensive, time is expensive, and then there's the waste. The straining process produces massive amounts of acid whey, a byproduct that's so acidic it can't just be dumped down the drain without killing every fish in the local river. It has to be hauled away as agricultural runoff. The math is brutal, and the big dairy conglomerates hated it. So, decades ago, most of them just stopped straining. But they didn't stop calling it thick, or Greek style. Instead of removing the liquid to make it thick, they decided to keep the liquid and just add glue. They take regular, runny yogurt, and they dump in modified cornstarch, gelatin, and stabilizing gums. These ingredients act like a culinary Spanx. They hold everything together and create an artificial heaviness on your spoon. It feels thick, it looks thick, but it never touched a strainer. This is the logistical magic trick the industry uses to deliver a fake premium product at the same price as the real thing. You're paying for the labor and milk volume of a traditional process, but you're receiving a shortcut slurry. The only reason they get away with this is a massive legal loophole. The FDA's standard of identity for yogurt was last meaningfully updated in 1981, back when the biggest concern in the dairy aisle was whether you liked your fruit on the bottom. According to the FDA, as long as a product contains milk and bacterial cultures, the manufacturer can legally add almost anything else they want and still print yogurt in big letters on the front. Even worse, there is no FDA standard of identity for Greek yogurt at all. Zero. None. It's a completely unregulated marketing term. A brand could take a bucket of skim milk, thicken it with industrial starch and wood pulp, and label it authentic Greek style with total legal protection. When you pay $6 for a tub of yogurt loaded with thickeners, you aren't paying for quality food. You are subsidizing a corporation that figured out how to skip the most expensive step in production while charging you a premium for it anyway. We're going to look at the fine print because the ingredient list tells a very different story than the front of the package. Let's get into the skip list. Now that we've pulled back the curtain on the industry's little $6 billion shell game, it's time to start looking at the actual containers in your fridge. We're auditing the skip list, the brands that have optimized their balance sheets by compromising your breakfast. We start with the French-style icon that practically defined the American yogurt experience for decades, Yoplait Original. Owned by General Mills, Yoplait has built a multi-generational empire on that iconic tapered red cup. It's marketed as a wholesome, light, fruit-filled snack, but the moment you flip that cup over, the marketing fantasy collapses into a pile of industrial fillers. Look at the strawberry variety. The second ingredient on the list is sugar. Not milk, not fruit, sugar. By the time you get to the fifth ingredient, you hit modified cornstarch. They aren't straining this to make it creamy. They're using corn derivatives to simulate the mouthfeel of real dairy. You'll also find kosher gelatin and natural flavors, along with a lovely red coloring sourced from cochineal extract. For those who skip biology class, that's literally crushed beetles. A single 6-ounce cup contains 18 grams of sugar. To put that in perspective, that is more sugar per ounce than a Krispy Kreme glazed donut. Yoplait has been hit with multiple lawsuits over the years for misleading health claims, including a massive class action settlement regarding its YoPlus line, which claimed to revolutionize digestive health while being essentially store-brand ice cream in a smaller cup. The verdict? This isn't breakfast, it's candy in a foil-top disguise. Next up is the brand that convinced every woman in America that they needed a specific brand of dairy to, well, stay regular. Dannon Activia. Activia spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a promise that their exclusive Bifidus regularis probiotic strain would fix your bloating and regulate your system. It worked so well that in 2010, the Federal Trade Commission stepped in and forced Dannon to pay a $21 million settlement because they had absolutely zero scientific evidence to support those specific health claims. But the marketing scandal is actually the smaller problem here. Read the back of the cup. You'll find modified food starch, sugar, and natural flavors. But the real kicker is carrageenan, found in several varieties. Peer-reviewed studies, including those published in Environmental Health Perspectives, have linked carrageenan to digestive inflammation and gut lining damage in animal models. It's darkly ironic. The very ingredient used to give Activia its smooth, healthy texture is the same substance suspected of irritating the digestive tract the product claims to heal. With 17 grams of sugar in a flavored cup, you're just shooting glucose into your bloodstream and hoping the probiotics can survive the chemical slurry. If you're a gym goer, you've definitely reached for Oikos 000. The pitch is brilliant. 0 added sugar, 0 artificial sweeteners, 0 fat. It sounds like the holy grail of high-protein snacks. But Dannon's 000 is a masterclass in labeling semantics. While they claim no artificial sweeteners, the product is loaded with sucralose and stevia leaf extract. Dannon argues stevia is natural, and they disclose sucralose in a way that allows them to keep that 0 on the front, but your brain and your gut still react to the chemical sweetness. Then there's the protein. They aren't getting that high protein count by using more milk. They're dumping in milk protein concentrate, MPC. MPC is an industrial powdered protein additive that is so processed it isn't even legally permitted to be used in standardized cheese in the United States. It's a cheap way to proteinify a product without the expense of traditional straining. This isn't yogurt, it's a protein supplement powder mixed into a dairy base with some cultures stirred in at the end. You're paying for a lab-grown fitness aesthetic, not a whole food. Then we have Light and Fit, the textbook example of artificial sweetener camouflage. This is for the calorie counters, bragging about 80 calories on the front label. But look at the ingredient panel, and you'll see sucralose and acesulfame potassium, ACE-K, working in a chemical concert to mimic the taste of fruit that barely exists in the cup. ACE-K has been the subject of ongoing safety reviews in the European Union for over a decade, and recent studies on sucralose, marketed as Splenda, suggest it can significantly alter gut microbiome composition. It's a bizarre product. You're buying a probiotic food that contains sweeteners known to disrupt the very bacteria you're trying to cultivate. You're paying premium prices for chemically sweetened, gum-thickened skim milk. The fit in the name is a marketing department fiction. This is basically a diet soda in solid form. We can't talk about industry sins without mentioning Go-Gurt. This is the most aggressive example of yogurt marketing aimed at children, and it is a nutritional disaster. A single tube is a roster of high-fructose corn syrup, sugar, modified cornstarch, and artificial dyes like Red 40 and Blue 1. Red 40 is banned in foods marketed to children in several European countries because of documented links to hyperactivity and behavioral changes. In the US, it's perfectly legal to package it in a neon squeeze tube and aim it at elementary school cafeterias. The sugar load in one tube is roughly half a can of Coca-Cola. Go-Gurt isn't yogurt. It's a frozen aisle treat reclassified as dairy to bypass the parent guilt of putting ice cream in a lunchbox. Finally, the most disappointing on the list, Chobani Flip. Chobani actually built its name on authentic strained Greek yogurt, and their plain variety is still a respectable product. But the flip line is where they abandon their soul for shelf space. A single flip contains up to 20 grams of sugar. The fun mix-ins frequently contain palm oil, soy lecithin, and chocolate-flavored coatings made with cocoa processed with alkali. You're being sold the idea of a healthy Greek yogurt with a small treat, but by volume and sugar density, the flip side rivals a Snickers Mini. It's a candy bar with a yogurt sidecar. These 6 brands are the titans of the aisle, and they are all betting on the fact that you won't turn the container around. But we're going to change that. Hit the subscribe button if you're tired of being treated like a profit margin instead of a person. Next, I'm showing you the 3 simple tests you can do in your own kitchen to see if your favorite brand is lying to your face. And now, why sitting through that list of dairy-flavored disappointment was actually worth it. Look, I know your faith in the grocery store is probably at an all-time low right now. You're likely looking at your refrigerator with the same suspicion you'd give a used car salesman in a neon suit. But here is the good news. The real stuff still exists. And the most offensive part of this whole investigation? The honest brands, the ones actually using 4 gallons of milk to make 1 gallon of yogurt, often cost less per ounce than the stabilized slurry we just roasted. Before we get to the winners, I need you to know how to spot a lie in the wild. This is your 60-second refrigerator audit. Go to your fridge, grab a tub, and do the kitchen test. First, the spoon flip. Take a metal spoon, scoop out a heaping mound, and turn that thing completely upside down. Real strained yogurt is dense. It has structural integrity. It should cling to that spoon like soft-serve ice cream and refuse to move. If your Greek yogurt slides off immediately like a wet noodle, it's a fake. Gelatin and modified starch only mimic thickness when they're chilled and undisturbed. The second you move them, the physics change. Second, the weigh check. Tilt the unopened container, then peel back the lid. If you see a thin, yellowish liquid pooling on top, don't gross out, celebrate. That's whey. It's a sign that the yogurt was actually strained and is naturally releasing moisture. Fake yogurt produces almost nothing because the chemical thickeners have trapped every drop of moisture in an artificial cage. Finally, the 3-ingredient rule. If you see anything other than milk, cream, and cultures in those first 3 lines, put it back. You're not buying food, you're buying a manufacturing byproduct. So, who is actually doing it right? We start with the undisputed gold standard, Fage Total. Fage, pronounced faye for those of us not fluent in Greek, has been doing this since 1926. When they decided to take over the American market, they didn't do what most European brands do. They didn't sell their soul to a U.S. conglomerate to optimize the recipe for the American palate. Instead, they built a massive straining facility in upstate New York that uses the exact same traditional cheesecloth-based method they invented in the Mediterranean a century ago. Flip a tub of Fage Total 5%, and the ingredient list reads like a love letter to Old World dairy. Grade A pasteurized milk and live active cultures. That is it. No gums, no starches, no protein concentrates, no natural flavors, nothing engineered, and nothing hidden. The texture is so dense it stands up straight on the spoon, and the flavor has that perfect, slightly tart character that only comes from actual fermentation, not added citric acid. You can find a 32-ounce tub for about $6 at Target or Kroger, which, if you do the math, is actually cheaper per ounce than most of the flavored, sugar-loaded Yoplait cups. You are getting demonstrably superior food for less money because Fage spends its budget on milk, not Super Bowl commercials. If you want something even more specialized, you look for Siggy's. Technically, Siggy's isn't yogurt, it's skyr, the Icelandic ancestor of yogurt that's been fueling Vikings since the 9th century. The company was founded in 2004 by Siggy Hilmarsson, who moved to New York and realized our yogurt was so sweet and artificial he couldn't stand to eat it. Skyr is strained 4 times instead of 3, meaning it's even more protein-dense than Greek yogurt. The plain variety is just pasteurized skim milk and cultures, but where Siggy's really wins is their flavored line. While the big brands are dumping 18 to 20 grams of sugar into a cup, Siggy's uses real fruit and a tiny amount of organic cane sugar, usually topping out at 9 grams. They have a corporate discipline that is genuinely rare in the dairy aisle. They've actually walked away from millions of dollars in potential product launches because they refuse to cross their own internal sugar thresholds. It's thick, it's tart, and it's one of the few flavored options on the shelf that won't give you a glucose spike before your morning coffee. Finally, for the families out there who need a solid, reliable, mass-market option, we have Stonyfield Organic Plain. Stonyfield is the value play here. You can find a 32-ounce tub for about $5.99 at almost any Walmart or grocery chain in the country. It's directly competitive with the bad brands, but the ingredient list is pristine. Founded in 1983 as a farming school in New Hampshire, they've stayed true to the organic mission for 4 decades. Every ounce of milk in that container comes from cows raised without antibiotics or synthetic hormones. If you flip over the whole milk plain variety, you find organic milk, organic cream, and 6 live active cultures. That's it. It's not Greek, so it hasn't been strained. It's creamier and more liquid than fog, but the honesty is exactly the same. It's the perfect brand for the person who wants real, unadulterated food without paying boutique prices. These 3 brands prove that the yogurt illusion is a choice, not a necessity. You don't have to settle for starch-thickened pudding. You just have to know which labels are telling the truth. Stick around because we're wrapping this up with the 5 golden rules of the dairy aisle so you never get tricked again. If you're standing in the middle of a Kroger or a Target right now, staring at a wall of blue and white plastic containers, here is your survival guide to the dairy aisle. These are the rules you should screenshot or memorize so you never get played by a marketing department again. Rule number 1, the ingredient count is your primary metric of honesty. If a tub of plain yogurt has more than 3 ingredients, it is a manufacturing shortcut designed to save the corporation money at the expense of your digestion. You are looking for milk, cream, and live active cultures, period. If the list looks like a paragraph from a chemistry textbook, put it back. Rule number 2, banish the word modified from your vocabulary. Modified cornstarch and modified food starch are nothing more than industrial glues used to make a cheap, watery product feel like a premium, dense one. If your yogurt needs corn derivatives to stand up on a spoon, it isn't yogurt. It's a dairy-flavored suspension. Rule number 3, milk protein concentrate is the ultimate red flag for a product that skipped the straining process. If a brand has to add industrial protein powder back into their yogurt to hit their label claims, it means they didn't use enough actual milk in the first place. You want the protein that comes from the milk itself, concentrated through traditional straining, not a powder that isn't even legally allowed in standardized cheese. Rule number 4, treat the word Greek as a total fiction. Because the FDA has no standard of identity for Greek yogurt in the United States, that word on a label is functionally meaningless. It is an aesthetic, not a guarantee of process. Only trust the straining process if the ingredient list is clean. Rule number 5, do the lactose math. Real yogurt naturally contains about 4 to 6 grams of sugar from lactose. If the label says 15, 18, or 22 grams, you aren't eating a health food. You are eating a melted milkshake in a plastic cup. Rule number 6, natural flavors are a black box. If a strawberry yogurt needs a lab-grown scent to remind you it's supposed to be strawberry, there probably isn't enough actual fruit in there to provide any nutritional value. And finally, rule number 7, never forget the spoon test. If you get home and that yogurt slides off your spoon like a wet noodle, you've been sold a lie. The yogurt aisle is a perfect case study in how a multi-billion-dollar industry can re-engineer a 5,000-year-old human staple into a high-margin chemical snack without most people even noticing. They took a production process that was slow, labor-intensive, and honest, and they replaced it with a logistical magic trick that prioritizes shelf stability and shareholder returns over human biology. The industry is wired to extract as much value from your grocery budget as possible while providing the cheapest, most optimized inputs in return. It isn't necessarily a grand conspiracy. It's just the natural result of corporate optimization meeting a legal loophole. But just because it's legal doesn't mean you have to swallow it. Every time you flip a container and reject a brand that uses crushed beetles for color or cornstarch for thickness, you are reclaiming a tiny piece of autonomy. You are refusing to be a passive consumer in a system that views your health as a secondary concern to a quarterly earnings report. The truth is that the food industry relies on your convenience and your lack of time. They bet on the fact that you have 3 kids screaming in the cereal aisle and you won't take the 5 seconds to read the back of the cup. But those 5 seconds are the difference between eating a whole food and eating a science experiment. When you choose Fage, Siggy's, or Stonyfield, you aren't just buying a snack. You're voting for a food system that still values reality over illusions. You're proving that there is still a market for honesty in the American grocery store. And as we've seen today, the honest brands are often the ones that respect your wallet just as much as they respect your gut. It is one of the rare times where the superior product actually costs less per ounce because it isn't weighed down by a massive advertising budget and a roster of expensive chemical stabilizers. Thanks for sticking through this investigation. I know it's frustrating to find out that your healthy morning routine was actually a sugar-filled marketing trap, but now you have the tools to fix it. If this video helped you make sense of the chaos in the dairy aisle, do me a favor and share it with that one friend who still thinks their diet-labeled, sweetener-loaded yogurt is a fitness hack. They deserve to know what they're actually putting in their body. Drop a comment below and tell me which brand you're throwing out today, or let me know if there's another health food you want me to audit next. We're heading into the bakery section for the next investigation to talk about the whole grain illusion. And trust me, that one is even more deceptive than the yogurt aisle. Your health is not a commodity, and the food can't lie to you if you know how to read the label. I'm out. Go eat some real food.